So Advent, as you know, marks the beginning of a new season. It's a new year, so we actually could say Happy New Year, Christian Church, and be right on target. Advent, as you heard, means arrival. In Latin, ad to the nere means to come. So to come or to arrive is the meaning of the season. And Advent is a season that teaches us to be watchful, to stay awake, to patiently wait for something that has not yet been revealed to us. And I love that theme because I'm always waiting for something to be revealed that I'm unaware of, or that I don't know, or that I don't have the information. And Google is great for that, isn't it? If you carry a cell phone, thank you, church, for putting the pressure on me to purchase a cell phone a few years ago. But I love to Google, and all of this information comes up about black holes and the cosmos and stars and archaeology, because Google knows those are the things I'm interested in. And I love to be watchful and alert to my cell phone. That's not the meaning of the season, but anyway. The season of Advent challenges us to look for God in all the places that we have ignored God, or in which God, at this point, hasn't yet been revealed to us in the way God wishes to reveal God's self to us. God in the innocence and the curiosity of a toddler. God in the helping hand of a friend and a classmate who rescues us from being hassled in school and in the hallways of our schools by a bully. God in the compassionate outreach of a sanctuary church near the United States-Mexico border, who seeks to be a compassionate presence, a cup of cold water for our immigrant siblings who suffer under inhumane and wicked powers of their oppressors. God in the wrinkled face of that homeless person that we see walking the streets in downtown Lincoln, searching for a meal, a cup of coffee, a warm place to lay their head. God in the loving voice of a family member who sits at the bedside of someone who is suffering great illness. Seeking balance in Advent is our theme for this 4-week journey through the Advent season in preparation for the coming of a birth, that birth you know, of Jesus Christ, whose birth we celebrate at Christmas. In the meantime, church, you and I have been in this holiday spree, this season that began, I think, in August, or at least Halloween, that goes through Thanksgiving and Advent and Christmas and New Year's and the Super Bowl and on. It is this time of frenzied consumerism because this is where we live. You know, the shopping, the holiday parties, the get-togethers, the decorating, the house cleaning, the work and the school events, visiting relatives, in other words, getting ready for the holidays. It provides such a startling contrast to what the church originally intended for this season that was developed 1,700 years ago. A season of penitence in preparation for Christmas. The worship team chose the Star of David as the symbol. Jesus was Jewish, so it's quite fitting to choose a symbol from Jesus' own tribe. The Star of David, as we researched it, is this six-pointed star. It's two triangles overlaid. It's six-pointed, and it's actually older than the Jewish religion. It's an ancient symbol that talks about this perfect meditative state of balance. It's in perfect balance on all sides. And our hope is that you'll carry this symbol, the Star of David, around your neck, in your pocket, every day during Advent as a way to remind yourself to stop for a moment, to breathe, to meditate, to pray, and to acknowledge the need for balance in your life during this holiday season that so often leaves people feeling a sense of imbalance. Being quiet, seeking balance, slowing down, being mindful is something that Advent teaches us as we prepare for the birth of Christ. At the beginning and end of each church years, the lectionary scriptures present us with some strange sounding passages, like the one you heard this morning. They're filled with apocalyptic language, and with good reason. Apocalyptic language is language that talks about the end times. Apocalyptic means revealing or unveiling. When a bride wears a veil, and the veil is taken off the face, this beautiful, smiling face is revealed. Apocalyptic language talks about reward and judgment in the end of times. And so in today's reading from the Gospel of Matthew, it talks about the day and the hour of the return of Jesus, and says no one knows except God, not even the angels of heaven or Jesus himself. So for the first century community that followed Jesus as their Messiah, they were Jews. Matthew is the most Jewish of all our Gospels. And a new church year means a new Gospel that we'll be reflecting on throughout the year. Matthew will be the Gospel this year, with passages from John scattered in. Matthew describes the end time will be sudden and dramatic, just as the floods that swept through the world in the days of Noah. And Matthew describes the people in Noah's time as being caught up in the affairs of everyday life, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. There is nothing wrong with those activities. I did my share of eating throughout the Thanksgiving holidays. But Matthew says, these activities can be all-consuming if we spend our time eating and drinking and partying and paying attention to the day's work at hand. It can consume all our attention, and then we have no time left for God. These activities kept the people from knowing something deeper, something totally important that was vital for their survival. And perhaps we're in that boat too. The people, Matthew says, were not prepared, so the flood swept them away. You don't have to read this passage literally to get a message from it. Read it with eyes that go below the surface and apply it to our own life, people of God. It says, don't journey through life asleep. Be awake, be alert, be prepared for where and to what God is calling us to be. For 5 years, I have worked with somebody to try and get them to open their eyes. On occasions, it's worked. But in general, not. And so we keep trying. We remind ourselves of a need to be awake, and as we are waiting and journeying through life with things that are too busy and with things that don't really matter, we are not attentive to the things God calls us to really be attentive to. Our life, for example. So Advent is a season that calls us to be mindful. And mindfulness means becoming more awake. I had to do a lot of reading on mindfulness because I don't practice mindful reflection enough. I pray, and that's a practice of mindful reflection, but it's more than that. And so I read that mindfulness means becoming more awake and more aware of what's going on right here and right now. Being mindful can help us to be less swept away by our habits, our routines in life, our thoughts, and our emotions that so often lead us in the wrong direction. And by the wrong direction, I mean stress, depression, and negative thoughts, anxieties, anger, resentment, self-doubt. Mindfulness, church, is a remedy for these destructive emotions. Jesus tells us to be mindful and to be more awake, and to be mindful of what needs to be transformed in our lives, in our world, and here in our church. And so Advent is the season, church, that invites you and I to wake up, to open our eyes, to embrace the needs of the poor around us, to feed the hungry that stand knocking at our doors almost every single day, to clothe the children in the schools in our community who lack appropriate winter clothing. Advent calls us to be awake on issues that affect us, like global warming and becoming green. Issues about water shortage and immigration and gun violence and health care and the growing inequality of wages. And we must become awakened to the steps we need to take to ensure that equality and justice is there for all people and not for a few. Advent. Advent. Our world is shaking. Our world is being dismantled, as Matthew says. But you know what, church? A new world is being born. A new world is always being born. Out there and even in here. Let us listen to the voices of Advent as they proclaim, the reign of God is near. So stay awake, be prepared, practice mindfulness, be hopeful. Advent has dawned on us once again. Let us be a people that seek to be a presence to the wider community of Lincoln, Nebraska, in our activities, in all of our projects, in our outreach, and in our mission.